modern chess never to have become world champion. Garry Kasparov often said that he thought that Vassily had more than enough talent. It was unfortunately his temperament that stopped him from becoming world champion. Vladimir Kramnik, on the other hand, of course, Kasparov's protege, came up through the ranks and actually beat Kasparov to win the title in the year 2000. They have played together a number of games over the years. Probably their first game was something like 93 or 94 back in Novgorod or something like this.
Maybe even earlier.
Maybe even earlier.
I first met Vassily Ivanchuk at the World Junior Championship in Australia in 1988.
Wow.
And he tied for first there, even though he lost on the tie breaks to Jean Lothier, who eventually won.
Right.
But he is basically in the top 10 in the world ever since. I mean, that's absolutely spectacular. That's 25 years, a quarter century. That's really absolutely remarkable to maintain that consistency, even though his problem, so to say, is that he doesn't have enough consistency to become world champion, but yet he's consistently there, being one of the absolute top players, top 10 or so in the world for 25 years. Very few can do that. And he's absolutely loving chess, one of those people who lives for chess. Chess is his life. And he really gets emotional about it.
Yeah, I mean, he is certainly one who, if you don't know Vassily and you see him, you feel like he's in his own world sometimes. He's a very let's start with the basics. He's a very knowledgeable man, knows a lot about lots of other things. Slightly eccentric in his ways is probably the best way to put it, but I actually am his teammate over in England as well. He came over and played for Wood Green, and I can tell you firsthand, having eaten with him, that he's just a very nice guy. And what's really interesting about this particular matchup is that in the past, let's say, well, over the past 20 years, Kramnik has actually got quite a big score against Ivanchuk, but the most relevant game that they recently played was at the London Candidates, where I was at commentating, and of course Vassily Ivanchuk beat Vladimir Kramnik in the final round, and what that meant was that Magnus Carlsen, who also lost to Peter's Fiddler, Carlsen still managed to qualify, so Kramnik only needed a draw against Ivanchuk, and he didn't manage that, and as a result it's Magnus Carlsen playing Vishy Anand for the World Championship and not Vladimir Kramnik.
So Ivanchuk played the spoiler role, really?
Yeah, he spoiled the tournament for Kramnik, but what was really interesting about that particular round was that of course Vladimir Kramnik didn't believe that Magnus Carlsen would lose against Peter's Fiddler, so his strategy against Vassily was one of, right, I need to play for a win.
Right.
So he played a slightly dubious opening, and Vassily had absolutely no problems actually in the game. He really did well to beat. Defended the pawn with g3, and then very typically Kramnik played bishop a6, trying to get rid of this bad bishop. Well, thank you very much. Okay, he's managed to achieve that.
Gaining a momentum.
But now after rook fa8 by Kramnik, this allowed Ivanchuk to play.
Everything coming with a tempo, and look at that.
And after takes.
And now he didn't take back on b5, which he could, but he took on d5, using the pin along the e file, and the fact that the bishop on e7 is unprotected after pawn took the knight. Queen e7, and now there's a pin there, right? Knight e5 kind of threatening.
Knight e5 is a big threat.
And that is why black played rook c8 to protect the queen, so kind of unpin the knight in that way.
All right. But what is going on here? Well, the fact that Kramnik is playing so quickly still, again, means that I think he's still in his preparation in some mad way. Now, I've got an idea. It could be complete nonsense, but I want to try it out.
I have one too. I'm curious if you have the same
c6,
idea.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then rook c1.
Right. So
yeah, so c6 takes, rook c1.
Rook c1.
And if takes, which normally would be the first thing come to mind, black got 2 rooks for the queen and the pawn, but there is a big but here, because the knight is hanging and there are some back rank issues, so probably the knight has to kind of go back to f8, and after that happens, white immediately can attack with knight e5. Seems pretty deadly for black.
Actually, there's no way to defend that pawn. That looks absolutely terrible. So c6.
So taking looks rather risky. Question is what happens if black moves the knight right away, say to f6, and offer the exchange of queens.
I think that's more likely what would happen, and I think black's claim is actually that if you exchange queens here, suddenly
the pawn is very weak on c6.
The pawn is weak. There isn't really a back rank threat at the moment. Okay, you can play knight e5, fine, but here, if I were black, I would start thinking about getting my pawns rolling down the board if I could.
Well, you cannot right away
Not
because
right away,
of b4, ab, and there is a pin problem on the a file. And with that said, I see some issues here for black though, because if black cannot play b4, which he cannot, then white on the next move will play rook b1 and grab that pawn back on b5, because at the very moment we have equal pawns, right?
Right.
So if white indeed gets to play rook b1 and capture the pawn on b5, white will be up a pawn.
Right.
So black perhaps must play knight e8 at this moment. And of course the other issue is that on move 19 the knight may have gone to f8 as well, not just to f6. But let's say in this case black can still play knight e8 to protect then the pawn on b5, and also to threaten to play f6 and kick out the white knight from the center.
Seems sensible.
More importantly, so it won't protect the pawn on c6 anymore.
Right. Yeah, that looks all very feasible, and I think we've got Ivanchuk there in the picture with his typical twiddling. He's got these big bushy eyebrows. He's probably got the biggest eyebrows in chess, and there's a lot of hair he can twiddle during the game, you know, just mulling it over. Some people stroke their beards. Ivanchuk strokes his eyebrows. Anything can happen in this game, but anyway, there you go. So very committal move. He's played the move h4. Now in this position here after h5, black has erected his favourite pawn, I should say, maybe his favourite, but his favoured pawn structure. These three pawns combat against these four pawns, making it difficult to expand. However, as soon as you play h4, the big question is whether if black were to exchange queens, the king,
which he can force right away,
which he can force with queen a8, whether this is anything or not. For example, let's say white brings the king up to protect. It makes sense to save a tempo. And now a move like king g7. Well, white doesn't really have any moves here, just king e3.
Right.
Now let's exchange and play king e7, and suddenly, okay, the king comes over here, but my king invades.
So why don't we play that out just for our viewers?
Okay.
After king d4, king e6, king c4, king f5. King attacks the rook, rook retreats. Of course the question is, okay, let's first check what if rook takes pawn. If rook takes pawn, rook takes, and then king g4, king b5, grabs the pawn. White will just lose a whole bunch of pawns and the game, right? Now the question arises though, if after we saw all those moves, if white maybe can just sit and not take the pawn on a4. And that may be what Ivanchuk is hoping for.
Just sit. Okay.
So king d4, king e6, king c4.
King e4?
c4.
Oh, king c4.
King f5, king b4, rook a8, and now not to take the pawn, but just kind of sit and wait, since the rook on one hand protects the pawn on g3, and on the other it holds off black's passed pawn.
So what are you playing
King
here?
b5.
Just king b5. Oh, I see. Okay, king g4.
And just king b4. Keep waiting.
Check.
King c5.
Oh, have you got no?
And the idea is to now take your pawn on a4 and then go after the f7 pawn with maybe the king d6.
King d6. Rook f3. And that's a draw. No, it's not a draw. Is it? King, rook f3?
King a7. Rook f4, take, it's a draw. And king f7.
And that doesn't work because the e6 pawn runs.
Yeah, e-pawn runs away. Well, in the meantime, in the actual game...
He didn't do this.
He didn't do this.
That's standard.
He didn't want to trade queens, he just played king g7. Of course, this gives white perhaps the opportunity to no longer allow that forcing of exchange of queens, and white could play, for example, king h2, moving out from the diagonal. So if then black still would play queen a8, the white queen is no longer in a pin and would have the option just move away to d4, for example. And
so
I don't know. I have hard time imagining how black will now make progress.
Well, let me play a move. Let me play queen b5.
So you have some ideas on the second rank to give some checks. So maybe just king h3 even.
Okay. But
I know it can get a little tricky with some...
now
and you got there also.
It's getting a bit tricky.
Yeah, white certainly has to be very careful here. It's not quite over. And let's check in on our other game.
That sort of Ivanchuk situation, he was out of the woods, then he got back in. I felt like Vlad probably misplayed it somehow.
And indeed Vlad found the move, rook b5, the one we felt was probably the most direct way to play, and I don't think we'll see the game play out all the way as we have it on the right chessboard on the screen, but I think somewhere along the line Vassily will resign earlier than that.
I think he might even resign now.
I wouldn't be shocked.
It wouldn't surprise
me. In fact,
me.
He has a tendency to resign, even sometimes with only one pawn down.
No, this is awful for Vassily. And
well,
queen. He's played queen d4, but
he did, hoping for that pawn discovery move with e6. But I don't think he has any doubt that he knows the outcome of the game here, and it's not favoring him.
No. Let's go to the other game then. Morozevich, Tomaszewski, and rook h3 has been played. I like that move in as much as I defend g3 because I'm worried.
Right. It kind of checkmate is in the air.
It's gone.
Oh, it's over.
It's over.
It's officially over. Wow, that's a big win with the black pieces.
Yeah.
And Vlad rarely ever loses with a white.
Yeah, very rarely.
So if he doesn't want to lose, he doesn't need to win. He can be stable as a rock with white.
Well, Vassily looks absolutely dejected there. He's holding his face, not happy at all. Look at that shot there. He's really unhappy. I think he knows that he should have been able to hold at some point. Yeah,
it's a sad Chucky there. It wouldn't be, of course, losing a game with the white pieces. Of course, he tried, but he never really seemed to have a chance to play for a win, right?
Oh, not for a win.
He seemed to be on the defense or the counter punch maybe at some point, but no real chance to win, which is never fun with the white pieces.
Sure, no, absolutely. Well, look at him there. That's hands in the air. Yeah, just he's thinking. They're discussing. Well, he's
disappointed.
He wants to analyse.
Yeah.
He's not listening to the arbiter who says you can't do this, we need to put the result up, the official result. And Chucky is on the verge of going out. Black needs to win against Kramnik. If there's somebody who can do it, it is Chucky though. Of all the players, Chucky may be the one. But
with black it's going to be terribly hard. If he would be white, he would definitely have some hope with the black pieces after such a convincing